Hello, welcome to the first of the 5 lessons of my 3D modeling course. This is the first lesson, and it might be a bit boring, but this is just an introductory lesson to 3D modeling itself in general and providing background information. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. The, the contents I'll be covering throughout the lessons are: what is 3D modeling? Where can we find the usage of 3D modeling around the world? Is 3D modeling hard to learn? What are the fundamentals of 3D modeling and key terminology? Who is the founder of 3D modeling and how has it evolved throughout the years? How does 3D printing relate to 3D modeling? What is Blender, the end slide, and the works cited? Let's start with what is 3D modeling. 3D modeling is the process of creating a three-dimensional representation of an object. This is done using 3D modeling software. During the process of 3D modeling, you are going to be working with vertices, edges, faces, lines, and polygons that can be manipulated to create your desired result. Your goal is to create a three-dimensional model that is highly realistic and high quality. This skill is used in many industries today, and it's a good essential skill, especially if you want to go into the engineering field, game development field, and etc. 3D modeling also incorporates other digital designing techniques such as animation, CAD, AR, etc. As I've mentioned, some of the industries that utilize 3D modeling. Let's dig further into this topic. And this leads us to where can we find 3D modeling in our everyday lives? 3D modeling is everywhere in our life. If you start looking out the window and see buildings, skyscrapers, houses, street signs, street lights, these were all planned from a 3D model and implemented into real life. Your desks, chairs, beds, and any furniture were all designed by sketch at first, then 3D modeled into an application, approved the design, and then manufactured and shipped the product around the world. 3D modeling is used everywhere and all around you. Industries like the manufacturing uses 3D modeling to create highly detailed prototypes of products to ensure the quality and measurements are correct, and this also allows them to customize the product to their own need. Healthcare industries uses 3D modeling to create prosthetics and implants, for example, arms and legs, for a better fit for the patient. Bioprinting is when scientists take cells and biomaterial to create 3D structures and tissues. This can be used to create organs like heart and liver. The engineering field is known for using 3D modeling for simulations and analyzing projects. This also allows easy collaboration between the team. The gaming industry highly relies on 3D modeling for the game's detail, uh, the graphics and animation. This also includes AR and VR games and any simulations. If you would want to pursue any career path related to any of the in the industry list here, is 3D modeling is a skill that is essential to have. Now, the most important question is 3D modeling hard to learn? The difficulty of 3D modeling can varies with the person's ability to uh, to adapt and the dedication that they put in. Every skill at the start is hard. Uh, you will have difficulty throughout the process, like any person. But through practice, you adapt to the keybinds, become more fluent, and improve. Once you master the fundamentals, you always learn new skills and go higher and higher. The aspects that makes 3D modeling hard are the technical proficiencies that require a bit of artistic skills, the attention to detail, the realism and aesthetics, complexity of the models. The model can be very complex or simple. The continuous learning, so the dedication, the problem solving. If there was an error, you need to know how to solve it. The rendering and the texturing, especially procedural nodes, which is the skill I struggle most on. The fundamentals of 3D modeling and the key terminology. So, the 3D model is made of vertices, edges, and faces. You can manipulate them by extruding, scaling, merge, and etc. I'll explain all these terminology and the definitions. The controls and keybinds can vary according to the software you're using. So the first key terminology is vertice. A vertice is a point in 3D space where two or more edges meet. Vertices are the building blocks of the 3D model. Edges are the line segments connect the vertices in a 3D model. The edges define the shape and structure of the model. Faces are planar surfaces which are enclosed by a set of connected edges. Faces create the visible surface of a 3D model. A mesh is a collection of vertices, edges, and faces, and that define the shape and structure of the 3D model. The viewport is the graphical representation of a 3D scene within a 3D modeling or rendering software. So this is an example here. A shader is a program that determines the visual appearance of a 3D surface in a rendering, such as the color and texture and lighting. The scaling is the process of resizing a 3D object, so making it bigger or smaller. Fill has two definitions. So in texturing is the process of adding color or texture to the faces of a 3D model. The filling in the 3D modeling process, if you would select edges or vertices and you would fill it, it will create this face. Extrude is the operation of extending a 2D into a 3 dimension, creating new geometry by pulling faces along the normals. So this is an example of extruding a 2D shape. And bevel is the process of rounding and chamfering the edge of a 3D model. Beveling makes sharp edges into smooth edges. The axis is in a viewport. There's three axes: the X, Y, and the Z. The X, Y, and Z. Sculpting is used in creating rigs. Is where you create like a character or like a humanoid, just like a humanoid structure. Rotation is when you rotate it. You can rotate the shape. The camera angle, so you can view it at either the z-axis, x-axis, y-axis, or you can move it around. Unwrap and UV is for texturing. Is when you lay the 3D model into into a 2D plane, so you can texture the mesh easier. Merge is when you merge two meshes into one, or two objects into one group. Texture is how the model is gonna look. This includes the color, the lighting, and the detail. Wireframe is like a X-ray of the 3D model, and the normals is if the face is facing inwards or outwards, and this is crucial in video games. Let's move on to who is the founder of 3D modeling and how has it evolved throughout the years. The founder of 3D modeling, or the creator, is Ivan Sutherland, who is born on May 16, 1930 in Hastings, Nebraska. He's an American electrical engineer and computer scientist and won the A.M. Turing Award, which is the highest honor in computer science for his development and contribution to computer graphics, starting with Sketchpad. Sketchpad is the first 3D modeling software to be ever created. Sutherland was one of the few young students who are already writing computer programs at a very young age. The sketchpad was used in 1960 by William Fetter, a graphic designer at the Boeing Company. He used it to draw out 3D models of planes, and he was the first person to create a human figure as a 3D model. Let's move. And the 3D modeling first began from a sketchpad, but throughout the years it has drastically evolved. I will now showcase you the timeline that I've created and explain the information. Here's a timeline I've created to explain the evolution of 3D modeling throughout the years. If you would like to pause and read all this information, please do now, and I'll be summarizing each of the decade uh, in my own words. So the first pivotal moment in 3D modeling occurred with the release of CAD system. At the University of Utah, researchers Gurad and Fong developed shading techniques that improved the visual outcomes of the 3D model. The release of the IBM PC in 1981 expanded the use of CAD from aerospace to engineering. This led to the creation of AutoCAD, a significantly cheaper CAD program, and in 1984, 3D printing technology was introduced. In 19 uh, in 1990, this decade saw the rise of widespread CAD software testing its limits, giving birth to applications like Cinema 3D, Maya, Autodesk, and Blender. Many of these are free, sparking increased interest and learning in 3D modeling. Uh, in, in the 2000s, uh, in the past decades, 3D Max underwent names changes and became Autodesk 3ds Max in 2005. Program development includes the introduction of the hair and firm module in 2005, improved its capabilities, resulting in more realistic architectural models. This period also witnessed the growing popularity of 3D modeling in the design and architecture industry. Now in 2022, now in 2020, 3D modeling is thriving, expanding its range of applications. Professional in engineering, architecture, and design can now communicate ideas through diverse mediums such as virtual reality, panoramas, animation, and still photos of personalized models, both inside and outside. So, how does 3D printing relate to 3D modeling? The design phase and the digital format are the exact same. Every 3D print requires a 3D model. As time passed, the growth brought about new opportunities. RepRap, a open source 3D printing project, was funded in 2005 by online backers. 2008 saw successful development and release. The 3D printer known as Darwin used a variety of easily ordered filaments to print the majority of its own parts. Here's an example of a 3D printed heart. And here's 3D print 3D. In the following lessons, I'll be teaching you how to 3D model using the application called Blender. But what is Blender? Blender is a 3D modeling application who was founded by Ton Roosendaal, a Dutch art director and self-taught software developer. In 1994, January 2nd, he began a degree in industrial design, but dropped out to start his own 3D animation studio named Neo Geo. Blender 1.0 launched in January 1995, and at that time 3D model wasn't that popular and commercially uninterested, but he and his partner Frank Van Beek founded a company focused on marketing Blender, which then led to the software to be free and downloadable by everyone. Blender is one of the most versatile applications for beginners and 3D models. This application is easy to use and used widely for game designs and models for 3D printing. I started learning Blender 3 years ago, but gave up on the first year, but then came back again. I have improved quite a lot, and I would, I would say a decent 3D modeler. In the In this course, I'll be teaching you the fundamentals from the keybinds, what everything does, the controls, to making a 3D model of your own. And I'll also guide you on how to create a 3D model. And that will start in the next lesson. Thank you for watching, and the next lesson is the introduction to Blender. Here are my works cited.